Of the Roaring 20s. So I just started the recording, technology and innovations in the Roaring 20s and how they affected culture, communication, and just the United States over time. So that's what we're going to get into. Key terms are up there. Let's go ahead and begin. So first key point, quick, easy to the point. New technologies and new manufacturing techniques helped focus the U.S. economy. All right, the production of consumer goods became the primary goal of the U.S. economy from this point forward, contributing to the improvement of standard of living, which means overall, as a whole, everybody's standard of living is going up. Greater personal mobility. People are able to move around quicker, faster, and easier than ever before on their own, I should add, and there are better communication systems in place than there were before. I'll give you about 2 minutes for this key point so you can get it down, and then we will move forward. Throughout this, guys, if there are any questions, please let me know. Those of you that are coming in a little bit later, something to keep in mind, we will be talking about what we are doing today in a little bit. I don't even know what I said there. That didn't make any sense. We're getting through the first key point right now, so go ahead and get that down. A little bit more time left, about a little less than a minute, about 45 seconds, and we're moving forward. Fifteen seconds. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward. Henry Ford is our first topic for today. Henry Ford and the Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford produced the Model T, which was one of the first mass-produced vehicles in the United States and in the world. Cars are a big deal. It is. Making cars is a big deal. Cars are going to be really important in the U.S. especially. But the bigger deal that Ford was a part of was of his contributions to manufacturing. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So that's Henry Ford. His contributions to the automobile industry are important, but his contributions to manufacturing are more important. Keep that in mind. Ford fix repair. That's funny. So I'm just going to say, Alex, really quick, because this made me laugh. You approved of the rule. So my first 2 times I taught this virtually, at least one person, usually more, bashed Ford the second I brought him up. And so thank you for proving the point that nobody likes Fords in 2021. That's funny. I used to have a Ford, so I have a soft spot in my heart for Fords. I'm a big fan. I had a Ford Ranger in school and stuff. Anyways, automobiles are an American staple, though. And what does that mean? Well, they become a part of American culture in a way that they really hadn't been before. They are unique. This is a uniquely American phenomenon. In other parts of the world, like Europe, automobiles aren't a thing everybody gets. It's not a thing you need to have, right? I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure most of you here in this Zoom right now at some point want a car pretty soon. You're trying to learn how to drive so you can hopefully either save money for a car or get a car, or one day, you'll get a car, but people want cars. It's an American thing. By the end of the 1920s, 80% of all automobiles worldwide are going to be owned by Americans. Yeah, don't get a Honda Ridgeline. That's tragic. I actually have a buddy who had a Honda Ridgeline, and he swore it was amazing. And yet every time he went out with it, we had to pull him out of the sand when we went fishing. He always got stuck. But so yeah, by the end of the 1820s, 80% of all automobiles in the world will be owned by Americans. Purchasing cars will change all of American society. People will move further away from urban areas because now they have a car and they can drive into the city. People will, or cities, I should say, will rebuild and restructure their cities to accommodate vehicles and cars. That's why in American towns, everybody's got wide roads for cars to pass through. I really misspelled Houston. Don't tell anybody. It's horrible. But keep that in mind, right? In other places, like in Europe, if you guys have ever seen like Top Gear or Grand Tour or any of those shows, right, where they're driving cars in Europe, in some places, some streets, like cars don't really fit in there. It's because they're not built for vehicles. Not that many people had them back in the day. But in America, as America's developing, everybody starts coming accustomed to getting a car. Like I said, I doubt there's many people of you in here right now that wouldn't want a car at some point soon. Cars are an American staple. They're an American thing. So I'll give you about 2 minutes to get like the cultural impacts of the car. There's some photos there of Henry Ford and his Model T. The automobile, as they say. In about a minute and a half, we'll talk about what made Henry Ford, though, and what was his biggest contribution to this era, because he does something that's even more important than just making cars. A little bit more time, about 35 seconds, and then we're going to move on. Roman, you're going to vomit. Is it because of the Honda Ridgeline, or was it because of the how I spelled Houston? Just yes. Is it both? Is it my spelling of Houston and the Honda Ridgeline? Yeah, guys, don't spell Houston. Huston. I spelled it Huston. That's how you know I don't borrow these PowerPoints from other people, by the way, because I spelled Houston Huston. Who's manufacturing the tires? So we're going to get into all of that. So what makes Henry Ford so profitable, what makes Ford Motor Company such a great company is not the cars. Backtrack. There we go. So it's the assembly line. Yeah, I make them all the time, guys. I make them every PowerPoint's mine. I make them. So the assembly line. Sorry, I don't know if that's a good or a bad wow. So the assembly line, Henry Ford. Basically, what Henry Ford does, his contribution to this industry, what makes it possible, is he creates and pioneers in the assembly line manufacturing. Large conveyor belt slowly drags all the parts through the factory. Every factory worker has one job, and that's one job that they do all day, every day for their entire employment. So you might be this dude right here, and your job is to attach the left bolt. Or you might be this dude back here, and you put in the back right tire. Right, and that's your job. You put back right tires in on cars all day, every day. That's your job. It's very efficient. It's scientific management to the nth degree. It is so efficient that he will outcompete and outsell everybody else. Manufacturers who build cars from start to finish completely will not be able to compete with the prices because they're going to be more expensive, and they're not going to be able to compete with the scale. Right? Because if some crazy rich person comes out and says, I want 10 of your cars, they're going to be like, that's going to take 2 years. Like they can't, I'm just exaggerating, right? But they can't compete with the speed, the scale, or the efficiency, or the prices of Henry Ford and his Model Ts, which make Henry Ford, Ford Motor, and Model Ts become, the dominant vehicle on the market. They're affordable for people to buy for the most part. So manufacturing is where Henry Ford actually becomes really important and famous, more important than just making Fords. It's the manufacturing. Fords are not the best cars. They're not the fastest cars. They're not even the best built cars, but they are the easiest and quickest and cheapest as far as price, not necessarily quality. As far as where they get individual parts, my understanding is that for the most part, it's like designed and ordered through little companies. It's not like there's no car industry yet. It's all stuff that they make like in-house for the most part, little pieces that are mass produced. There's no car industry. It's not like there's tire companies. There will be later. There's not now. My understanding, and I could be wrong, so you have better information, let me know, but is that it's all like proprietary stuff in those older cars. They're very mechanical machines in that sense. Which is the problem with a lot of more modern cars, where a lot of car people tend to not like how electric everything is. About 1 more minute on the assembly line and then we'll move on. I do not believe they had drum brakes yet. I do not believe so. I believe these are still these are still pretty like dangerous as far as that goes. Do not believe they had that. Not early on anyways. I think eventually they do. And then we get disc brakes way later, right? But I believe it's like a hand brake. I don't even think it's pedals yet. But I could be wrong. I'm not too insightful on the Model T. They definitely didn't have airbags. That's totally not a thing. The thing that always trips me out about Model Ts is they look like they're on bicycle wheels, right? Those are skinny little wheels and tires. Old cars are death traps. They really are. They are. And that's coming from somebody who likes old cars, right? Like some of my favorite cars are old trucks, like old Land Rovers, old Land Cruisers. Old Broncos. I'm a big fan of the old Broncos. They ruined Broncos, by the way, guys. Ford, I'll never forgive them. Those new Broncos are gross. I'd rather have a Honda Ridgeline than one of those new Broncos. Yeah, the older ones certainly are when you consider safety-wise, right? They're awesome vehicles, though. All right, guys, let's move forward. Okay, consumerism. Really quick. What's a consumer? Somebody in the chat, just tell me really quick. What's a consumer? When you make goods for consumers to buy, who are consumers? What do we got? Nobody knows? If you don't know, put I don't know in the chat, but who are consumers? The people who buy it, right? Consumers are regular people. Thank you. Consumers are regular people. You and I, right? Regular people are consumers. People that buy goods are consumers typically. So what's going to happen during this era is the American economy is going to change. It's not going to be about exporting textiles. It's not going to be about exporting raw goods anymore. It's going to be about making consumer goods and selling them. Consumer goods during this time, toasters, radios, consumer appliances like refrigerators, stovetops, ovens. These are the products that will be the major source of production in the United States, right? It's why when we talk about like Herman Goering a little later and he says Americans don't make warplanes, they make refrigerators. It's because that's where their economy makes a lot of its money from. Many Americans overall as a whole have their standards of living increasing during this time period. Everybody's living a much better life. Everybody's able to afford cool, nice things that make their lives a little bit easier and better. The advertising industry is going to be born here. And these advertisers are going to use psychology to sell things to you. So on top of just saying like, hey, here's a toaster, buy it, it makes toast. They're going to say, hey, do you love your family? Well, if you love your family, then you're going to want them to have breakfast. You're going to want them to have breakfast quickly. You're going to want that breakfast to be really tasty. And you're going to want them to be healthy and move on in their lives. If you buy this toaster, that'll happen. But if you don't, then you must hate your family. End of advertisement. And I'm being exaggerated when I say that, right? I'm exaggerating, obviously. But they use imaging like that and messaging like that, just more subtle, in order to get people to say, I need that toaster. I love my family. I want to provide for them. I want them to have toast in the morning. And so that's how things are being sold. Is that how they sell things nowadays? Family will die if you don't buy this teapot. You joke, but it's kind of true. So those of you guys that have been to campus, I don't know too many of you who have been to campus. or I've talked to Nunez recently, right? But last year and for some of this year, right? He was a Samsung guy. He's got an iPhone now. Why does he have an iPhone? Because of the pressure of advertising and the people that buy into advertising, like me and other iPhone people that are like, ew, green text message, gross. And then they kind of like, you know what I mean? Yeah, he has an iPhone now. He gave into that thing. I need this iPhone so people will stop telling me, stop sending me green text messages, right? I'm speaking for him, but that's probably something along the lines, right? One of us. That's advertisement at work. Advertisement at work is getting you to want something really bad, as he should, right? He should have an iPhone. Well, if you drop the toaster, that's fair. Well, no, funny story. Funny that you say that. Y'all really bullied him into buying an iPhone? Yes, we did. We did. And as he should have. Now he's got an iPhone. Now he's cool. He can be in the cool teacher club. But yes, funny story about toasters killing your family. These early ones, especially the one like this right here, and maybe this one, I'm not sure, but these, especially this style, the way they worked is they're little doors. And you open them up and the heating elements are exposed and you put your toast in, then you close it. And then you open it up, you take your toast out, and you have toast. But the heating elements stay on as long as it's plugged in. And they get really, really, really hot. If you've ever put your hand in a toaster that's just turned off, you know, like, wow, it's really warm in there, right? Don't do that, by the way. Dangerous. Don't do that. But toasters get really hot. And these toasters, these early ones, were burning down houses left and right until they put in the little self-spring ejector and the thing that turned it off. So like your toaster now turns itself off after the toast comes out. I wouldn't leave it plugged in anyways, right? But before that happened, toasters used to burn down houses all the time. So sometimes when you bought the toaster, it would kill your family. I'm exaggerating. Usually families were gone. But it was a thing and it was an issue. Funny story about toasters. But yes, so advertising becomes a thing. The way you see modern advertising now is born there. So I'll give you a quick minute on consumerism, a minute and change. And then we're going to, today we're doing toast. That's good. Yes, it toasted the house. Again, about a minute and a half here, and then we'll move forward. Today we're doing something a little different. Your exit ticket is very short. And it's short because I'm taking participation grades. So on the next slide, what we're going to do is we're going to compare two images, and I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes to compare and contrast the images. So the next slide is going to be an advertisement, and then later on we're going to do it with a movie poster. But tell me what you see that's the same. Tell me what you see that's different. Kind of tell me why. We're going to talk about it in the next slide. So I'll give you a quick, about a minute here, and then actually no, a little less, about 45 seconds, then we'll move forward. So there is going to be participation grade today. I'm going to be checking in on that and using the Zoom chat log to supplement your exit ticket grade today. So make sure you're going to do this next thing, because I don't want you to have to get like a 50 on the exit ticket. That wouldn't be fun. That would not be fun. Plus, it's going to be, you know, it's kind of interesting to talk about because it's definitely something I thought was interesting when I was putting these together. All right, so let's move forward. So, like I said, 2.5 minutes on the clock. I want you to analyze both images, compare the similarities in the advertisements, but also tell me the differences in the advertisements. Send this to me privately in the chat box. You'll have 2.5 minutes. These are our participation grades. I am picking these up. I'm going to check them in the log. I'm going to read through them as you're sending them. So 2.5 minutes, compare and contrast the two advertisements. One of them is from the 1920s on a radio, and one of them is for an iPhone 6. Yes, it's an iPhone 6. I'm old, I get it. But let's go ahead and talk about that. So again, 2.5 minutes, analyze, starting now. Yes, this is when home buttons were a thing. I'm not gonna lie, I still kind of miss the home button a little bit, just a little bit. I refused to get rid of my iPhone 8 because it had a home button, and then eventually I had to because it broke. Sad day. About a minute and a half left. About a minute has passed. Again, what's the same? What's different? And send it to me privately in the chat. just under a minute. That is time. All right, start sending me your responses. I got some in here already. Nuke that chat box. Let's see what you got. So let's see what we got. I'll give you a few seconds to send it in. Roman, that's a really good point. Not a lot of people throughout the classes has made that distinction, and that's a really good one to make. I'll talk about it right now. Brandon, that's interesting. I don't know if that's what you'd want to focus on. Jonathan, that's also a good take, Jonathan. I like that. Saudi, yes, good points. So everybody I'm seeing, I'm reading good stuff. So I like everybody's responses. So I'm going to just kind of paraphrase what a lot of you are saying. Like I see a lot of your responses here, like Sophie, that's a good one. Sabrina, good one. Johanna, good one. There's a lot of good responses in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of compare them, right? So one thing you always see, right? Prices. The prices are on there. You want to know what it costs. Images of the item. Some of you guys are pointing out that like they're both selling you innovation, but in a different way, right? Like this one on the left, the old one, the radio is saying like, hey, you can get a radio in your house for the first time. Isn't that cool? Whereas this one's like, hey, this new iPhone, bigger, still go in pocket, but bigger, more screen, right? Some of you are pointing out, hey, the new one, minimalistic. Not a lot of words. There's not a lot of info on it. It's appealing to like a modern audience. Whereas this older one is full of information. Hey, let me tell you about the radio that you may or may not want to buy. Here's what it does. It sounds really good, right? It's a different audience. A couple of things you also notice that are different about them. Where is it? Sorry, I'm trying to read through y'all's responses. Give me 1 second. So nobody pointed this out, but one thing I will point out is that for the radio, they're telling you about brands, but they're more just saying, hey, buy our radio, right? Hey, it's a radio. The iPhone one is almost like if they're speaking to a very specific people, right? Almost like, hey, iPhone Club, check out the new iPhone, right? Little things like that, different like folds in consumerism. All right. So awesome stuff, guys. Thank you for that participation. I appreciate that. Like I said, that was a grade. So if you did not send it in, I recommend send it in a little late. It'll still be late, but it's better than not sending something in. So new forms of media, key point 2, radio and cinema specifically will contribute to the spread of a national culture, but they will also point out a greater awareness of regional cultures and the differences between people within those regions. We'll talk about what that means in just a second. I will give you a quick 2 minutes for the key points. About a minute and a half left on the clock. cool old pop culture. It really is. It's actually, we're going to talk about the birth of pop culture, when pop culture was brand new, and there was a concept of like popular culture. I'm even going to show you a clip from a movie from the 20s, from the first talkie, or one of the first talkies, I should say. All right, where are we at? Let's go ahead and move forward. So radios, cinemas, a couple of things here, right? Pop culture, American popular culture is born during the 1920s. This is mostly due to radio and cinema. By the end of this decade, most American homes will have a radio within. And corporations like Westinghouse will boom. Westinghouse is still around, by the way. They will be just under 600 official radio broadcasters in 1923 alone. They broadcast news, but also shows, nightly entertainment like the Amos and Andy show, which was a serial reminiscence of old minstrel shows from the Gilded Age. Again, for some reason, I put GH instead of Gilded Age. So what these shows are like, guys, is basically like a podcast, only they're usually scripted. So it'll be like a little radio show. It's like a play, but it's all audio. And for the first time in America, somebody gets in their car in the morning, drives to work, goes to work, is at work, then gets home, drives home. They can throw some food in the toaster. We're still on toasters. Sit down and listen to the radio in the evening for their favorite show. What's that kind of sound like? It's pop culture, right? And it's reminiscent of like, so a few months ago, right, we backtrack, right? What's everybody talking about? What's the show every Friday that everybody's got to see, and it's got to be on time, and I can't be late, and no, I can't miss it. Don't tell me about it. I haven't seen it yet. You guys know, what was that show a few months ago? Yeah, everybody was watching, me included, by the way. I love that show. What was the show? Well, like WandaVision now, right? But especially like Mandalorian also, right? Wheel of Fortune. Oh man, I haven't seen Wheel of Fortune in years. But yeah, like Mandalorian, right? It was super popular. Every Friday, everybody's got to talk about what the baby Yoda's doing, what's going on with that. And it's a major, major thing, an aspect of the culture. And it's still around, right? This is the start of that stuff. Instead of Mandalorian and what did the baby Yoda do now? And wait, what? They're doing cowboy stuff in space. And like, it's about these two white dudes talking on the radio. And they're making a really funny minstrel show that a lot of people like and a lot of people watched. And they're appealing to a culture, right? Hey, did you hear the show yesterday? No, I missed it. Oh, well, you're going to have to watch it next time. It's really good. And it's the first time that happens in the United States. First time it's happening in most places. And it's a really popular and really powerful thing, right? Because say what you will about any show or any movie, right? But for a group of people, like every week Mandalorian came out, you had something to talk about the next day, right? We did it here at work on Monday, right? So like we'd meet and we'd be like, man, did you see that episode? Crazy stuff happened, right? And you move on from there, right? Like, oh, the baby's so cute, blah, 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 blah. It's a talking point. It brings people together. And it's something really important. And that's what pop culture does for the most part. On top of the radio and radio shows, you had about 3/4 of the United States population during this time attending the cinema and movie theaters. Films like The Jazz Singer were the first time, like The Jazz Singer specifically, were revolutionizing this because it's the first time you have synchronized sound and music, which killed the silent film industry. Now you got to have talkies. You got to have people speaking in your film. So I'll give you a quick 2 minutes for this slide. Then I'm going to show you a little bit of a clip from Jazz Singer. I'm going to show you kind of where and why this film was so popular with so many people. It was such a big deal during its time period, 1927, I believe. All right, so about another 40 seconds and then we will move forward. I want to show you a clip from the jazz singer, show you what's cool about the clip too is that there'll be words on the screen that kind of explain like what's going on and what was such a big deal. So I'll show you about a minute and a half of jazz singer because it's very old timey and it's just interesting to watch. So a lot of these films are survived now, so you can see a lot of these things that we're referencing. I don't think there's any Amos and Andy shows because those are a little racist. Those are minstrel shows that are survived the Gilded Age. Not great. All right, let's move forward. So like I said, I'm going to talk about the jazz singer a little bit. This is the actual film people were watching. Let me mute myself. I just realized y'all can't hear that, right? Because I need to stop the share. Hold up. Oh, you were hearing it? Okay, sorry. Let me start it again then.
What they say, but to me, he's an angel of a joy. Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you, you ain't heard nothing. You want to hear Toot Toot Tootsie? All right, hold on. Lou, listen, play Toot Toot Tootsie, 3 choruses, you understand? In the 3rd chorus, I whistle. Now give it to him hard and heavy. Go right ahead. Nothing but blue skies from now on. You like that, Mama? Yes. I'm glad of it. I'd rather please you than anybody I know of. Oh, darling, will you give me something? What? You'll never guess. Shut your eyes, Mama. Shut them for little Jackie. Oh, I'm going to steal something. I'll give it back to you someday, too. You see if I don't. Mama, darling, if I'm a success in this show, well, we're going to move from here. Oh, yes, we're going to move up in the Bronx. A lot of nice green grass up there and a whole lot of people you know. There's the Ginsbergs, the Guttenbergs, and the Goldbergs. Oh, a whole lot of birds. I don't know them all. And I'm going to buy you a nice black silk dress, Mama. You see, Mrs. Friedman, the butcher's wife, she'll be jealous of you. Oh, no, yes, she will. You see if she isn't. And I'm going to get you a nice pink dress that'll go with your brown eyes.
No,
what do you mean, no? Who is telling you? What do you mean, no? Yes, you'll wear pink or else. Or else you'll wear pink.
So, other than being a weird 20s movie, it's the first time, as you saw, right, that people are actually talking in the movie. And it's not even most of the movie. It's not throughout the movie. It's a silent movie that's got talking in it. And it's revolutionary. It's the first time people have seen it. They're like, oh my God, there's like, and again, it's not the music so much as it is the stuff in between where he's having conversations and it's recorded and playing on the screen and it's synced up with the sound. It is revolutionary and it will lead to the film industry in the United States. And somebody said Warner Brothers is a really old company. Yeah, it is. It's been around. This is the same Warner Brothers that makes, not as great movies today, right? Like that makes Justice League and stuff. Like it's the same Warner Brothers, same company. It's been around that long. So yes, very old company, but, and also something to point out, something that, you may or may not realize, the film industry is a very American thing. It's an American concept. Film studios, the United States, it's unique to America. It's something that other countries have been catching up on for years. And you can argue maybe they still haven't, right? Yeah, film in the United States, big deal. Filmmaking, it's an American art form. It's very unique to America. Not the technology, but the industry itself. And it's very revolutionary. That's why like American movies are still the ones that make the most money everywhere, right? Because it's a thing. People like American made movies and it's still a thing now, but it was especially a thing back then. So it's an American phenomenon. Keep that in mind. Something unique, something that Americans can say it's theirs. Talking about film and movies, because we're running a little low on time, but we're making good time. Last compare and contrast, but we're going to do this with movie posters. So same amount of time, 2.5 minutes. I want you to analyze the images. I want you to tell me what you're thinking about and tell me what you see that's the same and what you see that's different. Be specific. Point out like the wording. What are they advertising? What's on the poster? Is it the same? Is it different information? Is it more? Is it less? 2.5 minutes, go. About 1.5 minutes on the clock. Time is up. I should start seeing your responses in there. Roman, good job. I like that. That's good pointing out. Good pointing out like the stylistic stuff. I like that. More focus on the words, yeah. This is more, yep. Good job, Alex. Good job, Jonathan. Joanna. The art, yep. Yep, focus on art, let's focus on words. Sophia, yep, good stuff. More chill, more intense. Yeah, you're not wrong, right? But so I'm seeing a lot of really good stuff, guys, right? Like you're pointing out like stylistic differences, right? Like modern movies have a style to them that maybe older movies didn't, right? Jazz Singer is a really old movie. It's the first talkie, right? But some of you are pointing out like, hey, there's more focus on like the people and the actor and the words are a bigger deal in the Jazz Singer poster, whereas like the Jurassic Park poster, the words are shrunk on the bottom, right? The words aren't a big deal. The art is going to catch your eye, right? Because now there's more movies coming out every year, and it's more about like dinosaur, what? Like it's a bigger deal to make the movie seem interesting, as opposed to this is just like this is the only movie you're going to see. You're going to watch a movie, it's going to be Jazz Singer, right? I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys know that, right? Like back in the day, and up until recently, up until a few years ago, you went to the movies and there was like 2 or 3 movies shown and that was it. During the Jazz Singer days, there was 1 movie. You went to the movie to see Jazz Singer, and then that was that for a few months, and then eventually the new movie came out. But during like the 90s, the 1990s, there was movies coming out all the time, right? Up till recently, before COVID, there's movies coming out all the time. There was a movie every week, it seemed, because there was. So yes, the newer poster has more style to it. It's more about changing it. Something nobody noticed, which is fine, but something that I always like to point out, the coming soon, right? This is like an ad, as opposed to this seems more like informative. This is like, hey, it's coming soon. Check it out. Just little things. So good job, guys. Appreciate that participation. Like I said, that is a big chunk of your exit ticket today. So hopefully you get that in there. Last thing before we end, we've got just enough time for it too. This new pop culture movement will bring people together, like we talked about, right? Like with Mandalorian. It makes people have something to talk about. But it also will emphasize and highlight regional differences between people and race, especially in regards to race and culture. And what I mean by that is, for radio shows, for example, there's very few that are depicting what the Black American experience is like. Very few of them, if any. And in fact, almost none of them will do so without relating it to what's going on for other mainstream Americans, like whites, for example. This is just the truth of the time, right? And for Blacks especially, this will lead to something called the Harlem Renaissance, right? Which is a little bit later on, so we're not going to talk about it, but I'm giving you the name now, where they're going to highlight their culture, right? It's going to be Black people doing things that are, for their culture, and it's going to highlight them. It's going to be a really awesome time period. And got a lot of really great music, a lot of really great art from that time period, but that's the Harlem Renaissance. And that's going to come as a result of like, well, I don't see myself represented in the radio and things like that, right? Rural people, farm people, very good music. You're right. Very good music comes out of the Harlem Renaissance. We're going to hear some of it when we talk about it. It's awesome stuff. But it shows people like, hey, there's a chance for it now, right? And it highlights it. Rural people, for example, saw their way of life was very different from urban people, right? Like a Farmer Joe, might hear a radio show about factory worker Frank and realize, I don't live like that. My life's very different. This is still around today. Like, at least it was when I was growing up. It's probably around less now. But like the example I always like to give, and tell me if this doesn't make sense, but like when I was a kid growing up and I would watch TV shows, whether it's animated or live action or whatever was on TV, the thing I noticed, and this was from when I was a little kid, I remember noticing like when I use like breakfast, like whenever they have a scene of people making breakfast in the morning, the scenes I saw on TV never looked like what it was like breakfast on Sunday at my house, if that makes any sense. Like, when I was growing up, and this is going to sound weird, but like there wasn't a toaster in the kitchen. We had a comal in the kitchen. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not, a comal is like the little pan. So like, I don't know if you guys have seen that now, but like I still don't really, when I watch TV shows, you don't see people like making stuff on the comal or like the grandma in the corner with like the cheap plastic bowl, like making tortillas. At least that's what my grandma made them in. Like, you know what I mean? You see, like, I didn't see that growing up in TV. And that's something I noticed as a little kid. It's not something you care about. It's not something really significant or important, right? As long as the TV's good. But little things like that get highlighted. And little things like that get noticed by people. And while as a whole, this pop culture stuff brings people together, it tends to just show that everybody's a little different. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, I can try to explain it a different way. But little things like that are things you don't notice until you see them, until they're brought to light. Whereas like now, maybe if they made a TV show and takes yeah, grandmas are superheroes, Jonathan. That's how they have superpowers. That's the best way I can explain it. Because yeah, like the whole countertop's all used up. There's flour everywhere. It's a big thing. And then like you walk in the next, like a couple minutes later and it's clean. Yeah, grandmas have superpowers. That's how. But so like for example, I'll give you another example of like maybe nowadays you'll watch a show and you'll see like a family making stuff like in the morning, and it's like they have the comal out and grandma's making tortillas in the morning. And then if you're like, I don't know, if it's some family that doesn't do that, they might be like, what's that? I've never seen that. And it's interesting, right? Nowadays, there's more of that stuff. But back when I was growing up, there was less of it. There was actually none of it. I can't recall. I remember like in the Selena movie, the one with Jennifer Lopez, like the Tabasco sauce, putting Tabasco sauce on everything. That was when a lot of people from my generation were like, hey, I put Tabasco sauce on everything. And that's not even this. That's like the Texas and Hispanic thing, maybe an RGB thing. But it's something that when you see yourself depicted in pop culture stuff, it makes sense to you, right? It's cool. It's something you want to see. It's something you want to notice and do. So it's something to keep in mind. And it's a really unique experience. And it's something that you should always look for. And it's something that I feel like we get to see a little bit more of nowadays, but it's not something that you used to always see. And it especially isn't a thing you used to see in the 1920s. So it's just something to keep in mind. And with that being said, guys, it's exit ticket time. So the exit ticket's already posted. It's only 2 questions, and they're pretty brief questions. Henry Ford and his contributions, and radio and cinema on culture. So you got about 5 minutes left in this class. Go ahead and get those done. Can I go back? I can. I'll get rid of this. So go ahead and get those done. And that is it, guys. As soon as you are done with those, you are good to go. Make sure you did your participation stuff. If you didn't do it and you still want the credit for it, put it into your Google Classroom submission. Wrong pipe, sorry. So again, if there's no questions, you guys are good to complete your exit ticket? That hurt.